Hi there, folks. I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I'm offering this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, for the soul. It's titled, The Virtues of Crookedness. The meaning of life just doesn't add up. So I invite us just to still ourselves together in silence, to prepare ourselves. Let's invite a loving presence to be here amongst us and to awaken from deep, deep within us all. Spirit of life and of love, be with us now. The weight of a world filled with so much pain and beauty rocks all of us at times. When we want to escape this life, help us to remember that we belong here, that we are accepted here as we are, exactly as we are in this moment. Remind us of this when it seems too much, when we feel that we don't belong. Help us to connect once again. Help us to find the sound of rain, the relief of darkness, the kinship of community, the comfort of soft animals, the kindness of people. Remind us that even within our weaknesses, we can find unique strengths, that in the breaking of our hearts, we can find wholeness if we remain open to it, and that we can find that love that passeth all understanding. Be with us when we feel so alone, when life seems too much. Keep us open to life itself. Amen. There was a crooked man who walked a crooked mile, who found a crooked sixpence upon a crooked stile. I don't like Mondays, but sometimes I don't. Thankfully, not in quite the same way as that awful character in that Boomtown Rats song. But Monday, it doesn't seem to be my favourite of days, or it doesn't feel like my favourite of days. I often find. I find Mondays a bit of a chore, a bit of a challenge. I'm usually tired, exhausted, if I'm honest, and I find myself slogging through the day. Sundays take quite a bit out of me, if I'm honest. And usually after forcing my way through my gym routine, I'm beginning strangely to already form ideas about what I'll be exploring in the coming week. I did exactly the same thing this last Monday. These are some of the fruits of it, what you're going to be hearing now. Although actually, if truth be told, the seed had already been planted very early the day before. Although by Monday, it was starting to take on a whole new life. So I began my research when I came back from the gym and had showered and eaten. But I quickly became distracted by other things I needed to do that day. I had to write my latest contribution to the Inquirer, at least piece it together, and other stuff for congregational work for our monthly newsletter, etc. But despite all these other things I had to do, I'd made a good start on my research for what I wanted to explore this week. I went to bed early that evening and I slept. I slept a sleep of sleeps. I awoke the next day. Tuesdays, it seems, I love. I wake early, very early on Tuesdays, just before 6 o'clock, and I awaken alive and refreshed. Tuesdays tend to be my inspirational days, ones when I'm enlivened by everything, and I was this Tuesday. Having said that, though, I'm certain that none of Tuesday's inspiration would be possible without Monday's slog. So actually, if truth be told, maybe it's Monday that's the magic day. Not the manic Monday, maybe it's the magic day, even though I don't always feel it. It's alive and going on all through that day. But all day this last Tuesday, my attention was focused on everything, on folks' responses, particularly to theirs and others' crookedness and their perceived imperfections. I arrived early, well before 7 a.m. for my Tuesday morning meditation. Folk were already there setting up. My friend Adrian told me one of the heaters had blown a fuse and wasn't working. Now I knew it hadn't, He'd just not turned it on properly, although it is a bit of a bane of my life, as somebody told me this morning. Now, my friend Adrian is a very intelligent man. He's an engineer, as he keeps telling me. But he couldn't work out how to turn that heater on, or that it had two switches that needed to be turned on to turn it on. The other two were working, he said. You know what? He's the second engineer that I know has been baffled by these simple devices this last week. My friend then started talking about the need for laminated instructions and things that needed to be really simple. I remember thinking to myself, it couldn't really be much simpler, but anyway. He then spent time trying to make everything about our time together perfect. There were things going on in his life and it was coming out. Another friend arrived and she felt the need to move the candles so they were perfectly in the center of the room, just to set the scene perfectly. And then I found myself starting to move the chairs around to make sure there was enough chairs and enough space for everybody, to widen our circle so that everybody feels welcome when they arrive, to somehow make the circle perfect. And while I was also worrying about making the room the perfect temperature. We all have our little obsessions, the things we need things to be perfect for things to work, it seems, our perceived ideas of perfection, actually. And then we settled down. We shared this hour together. And that hour could not have been any better. It wasn't perfect, but it was just the right fit for us that day. We spent a profoundly beautiful and deeply moving hour together in spiritual community, awakening to the day, connecting deeply with one another so that we could connect beautifully with life. You know, it seems something else, that conversations about maths, or math as the Americans call it, have been floating around in the ether of late. It's almost as if maths or math has become a god that should be worshipped in the lives of some folk. Not for me, but for some folk. If life has shown me anything, it's that life is not some simple equation that will somehow resolve the chaotic nature of our existence. Chaos rules, it seems. I recently got involved in an online group that's called the Unitarian Universalist Hysterical Society. It's generally a light-hearted group, sharing about all sorts, posting silly memes and all sorts. But it seems that the majority of the memes on this group are around three distinct subjects. Maths, or math as the Americans call it, cats, and coffee. 75% of the posts are around these three subjects, it seems. Obviously things that people find amusing in such circles. Now, I responded to a post that suggested that math was the meaning of life. The meme read as follows. A couple of days ago, when my math teacher asked any questions, I asked, "What is the meaning of life?" She simply replied, "The meaning of life is math." Today we realize that in the alphabet, M is the 13th letter, A is the first letter, T is the 20th letter, and H is the 8th letter. 13 plus 1 plus 20 plus 8 equals 42. Math is the meaning of life. Well, according to Douglas Adams in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the meaning of life is 42. Now, obviously, this is him having some satirical fun at the world, I suspect. But it was funny seeing folk getting all excited by the letter making up, by the letters that make up math, equaling 42. Or at least it was until myself and several others pointed out that Douglas Adams was British, and thus would never have referred to mathematics as math. For him and anyone else educated in Britain, it is maths. And thus, by the logic of the meme at least, life, the meaning of life must not be 42, but 61, which of course it's not, is it? Life is not a mathematical equation, and its meaning cannot be discerned this way. At least, I don't think it can. Life continually proves that to me. Life is not maths or math. That is not the meaning of life. Now, the magic day this week, Tuesday, which was, of course, the 22nd of February 2022, was an exciting day for both mathematicians and numerologists, it seems. In fact, throughout the world, it was being labelled as Tuesday instead of Tuesday, Tuesday. According to many people, it was the last day when we will witness the following sequence of numbers: 22 to 2022, or in the American 2 22 2022. Or as folks were posting 2 22 22. Now, some are getting excited by the palindrome of this, whilst others by the idea that the sequence had mystical powers believed to elevate energies in individuals' lives, propelling them toward their dreams, desires, and unfulfilled wishes. Of course, the number 222 is an angel number, and according to astrologers, pivotal in shifting these powers. I also heard that 222 on that day was the perfect time to connect to these powers. But which 222? Do they mean 2 a.m. at 22 minutes past 2, or 2 p.m. at 22 minutes past 2, or 10 p.m. in the evening when it's 22:22 in the 24-hour clock? Who knows? By the way, not many young people today. My intelligent engineer friend told me his two intelligent daughters cannot read an analog clock. Did you know that? They only know the 24-hour clock. Shocked me, by the way, that. One of the first things I learned at school was how to tell the time on a simple clock face, but it seems that young people today don't know how to do that. Sorry about that aside. Now, I didn't really get into all this stuff about numbers and it being exciting, and I don't want to sound cynical about it. I think it's wonderful, actually, that people were so animated and enlivened by this, whatever the merits of it. What was lovely was to see how energized many people were by this sequence of numbers. Hopefully, it will help them to live more connected lives, whatever the merits of the time and day. I certainly felt some real special energy that day myself, so who knows? I felt like the whole of life was speaking to me. But then, that often happens on Tuesdays. I didn't see anything particularly powerful about this last Tuesday, as they called it. Nor do I think that maths or perfect number sequences can provide me with any answers to the meaning of life. I don't think that. I find my meaning by engaging fully in life, but doing so imperfectly. And last Tuesday was one of those days. But if this sequence helps people to do that, I think it's a wonderful thing. If it helps people to connect and pay attention and to connect to each other, actually, because these memes were being shared all over the world. It was amazing, really. Didn't mean much to me, but actually observing how it enlivened people's lives, that meant the world to me, actually. It touched my heart and it touched my spirit. Whether I get, just because I don't get excited by numbers, I get excited by people who get excited by things, I suppose. That's just me. But I'm a bit of an oddball, aren't I? As I'm sure you know by now. I'm also imperfect in everything I do. No doubt anyone listening to these words will hear all kinds of errors in my delivery. I'm sure you can pick them all out. Tell me about them afterwards. Send me a message. Several of the congregants of who I serve tell me that I'm really well known for my whopping typos about the stuff I send out. I know that Colleen, the Inquirer editor, has to always do quite a bit of editorial work on everything I write. My social media posts can be utterly hilarious in the typing errors that I put in. I'm a bit of a raggle-taggle kind of guy, really, in all areas of my life. My heart's all right, I speak from the heart, I suppose, not always, but I don't do anything perfectly. I can't paint inside the lines when trying. I couldn't do it as a kid, and I still can't do it now. My handwriting is dreadful. I'm in a nightmare, I think, for people trying to accompany along with me when singing. Sorry to all the musicians that I sing along with, because I tend to go my own way. My ear sometimes tries to improve him because I think actually that would sound better, which is not much fun really for an accompanist. I want to do things my own way, I suppose. That's just the way I am. Not disciplined. Can't paint inside the lines. Can't follow the tune that I'm supposed to follow. Want to sing my own tune, I think. That's just the way I am. And I'm not alone, I know. But I like to sing a song of praise to life itself and the beautiful imperfections of everything. To everyone who can't paint within the lines, I'll sing a song. For those who move a little awkwardly, because I do, who can't keep in perfect step, who can't walk a straight line, because I can't, I'll sing a song for you. I love the blessed crookedness of life and the blessed crookedness of people. We shouldn't try and make anything perfect because it feels unnatural. I adore, never mind enjoy, I blooming adore the holy imperfections in life and everything. This is where the real beauty of life is. Maybe that's where the meaning of life is, in the blessed imperfection, in the opposite of the maths, really. In the awkward, in the quirky, in the out of step and out of time. There are no perfect moments. There are no perfect days. Only this moment and this day. So let's make the best of what we've got. I personally want to encourage others and myself really to just keep stumbling along, however carelessly, no matter how falteringly, carrying our wounds with us, unashamed by our scars, making the beautiful mistakes again and again and again, limping along as wounded healers. Because there's a real danger in purity, in trying to be pure, in holding up the ideal, in ideas of perfection in anything. Things don't have to add up. There is no perfect sequence, no perfect system. Chaos rules really in life. So let's not be afraid to be our perfectly imperfect selves. Let's keep on making the beautiful, beautiful mistakes. Some of life's biggest mistakes have led to such wonderful discoveries in life, unexpected discoveries. How many beautiful mistakes do we make that lead to something amazing? The seed for this was planted last Sunday morning. I was chatting with a lady called Jeanette Podesta from the Urmston congregation at Queen's Road I serve. Her father had died recently and we were discussing what to do with his ashes. They will be scattered actually in the Garden of Remembrance at the other congregation in Altrincham at Dunham Road. John Reese's wife, Phil, and both of his parents, Horace and Elsie, are here at Dunham Road. Names on our nearly full wall here now in the Garden of Remembrance. I was saying to Janet, I remembered that her mum Phil had begun life at the Monton Unitarians and asked if that's where they were buried or their ashes were. And then Jeanette said something that was both stunning and amusing. It seems that her mum's family had become Unitarians by mistake. It was an absolute error that they ended up there. It was during the Second World War, and it seems that at the church at the time there were no signs signifying the denomination. And Monton Unitarian Church is a great big grand old building, more impressive actually than the local parish church. And it appears that her mother's family had gone to Monton Unitarians when they moved to the area, thinking that it was the local parish church, which it wasn't. They went, it was a mistake, but a beautiful one, for they found a home there. It seems it was a happy mistake after all. The family have found a home amongst us ever since. And as I was driving to do my second service at Altrincham that same morning, it got me thinking about all the mistakes that we make in life. How these mistakes can actually lead to beautiful blessings as we learn from them, or they might lead to wonderful new experiences. I also smiled as I thought of Jeanette's parents and a line from that film, Withnail and I. It came into my mind as I was driving along, listening to the radio. We've come on holiday by mistake, is what Withnail says in the film. Also reminded me of a sign on the door of the principal at the time of Unitarian College when I was a student, Reverend Dr. Ann Peart, that read, "I have learned so much from my mistakes. I think I'm going to make a few more." It got me wondering about the dangers of seeking perfection, of the dangers of straightness. I much prefer the virtues of crookedness, I really do. For after all, as Leonard Cohen observed, it's the cracks that let the light in, really. We need the cracks and the uneven and the broken. Beauty in life is found in the imperfections. That's where the real beauty is. It's certainly what's beautiful in people, for me anyway. But sadly, so many see something wrong in crookedness, in our imperfections. The philosopher Immanuel Kant once wrote, "Out of timber as crooked as that which man is made of, nothing perfectly straight can be carved." And that there's this idea that we're imperfect, that we're crooked, that there's something wrong with human beings, you know. Some take that to mean that there's something wrong with humanity, rather than seeing that actual beauty in life is created from the misshape and that beauty is created from the imperfect. Why do things have to be? Why do lines have to be straight? Okay, most of us can't create the perfect line, but we can create something beautiful with curves, with knot holes. Isn't that what life is? Isn't the perfect line kind of looks lifeless and inhuman and not real, really? I find the imperfect more beautiful, personally. You know, even if we did create something beautiful, something perfect, and people do perhaps, or at least it looks like it is, they don't remain that way, do they? They eventually break, or they scar, or they get scratched. Nothing lasts forever. And isn't that where the beauty in life is? In its finiteness, that nothing ever lasts forever, that life is flux, that no moment goes on forever, that things begin and things end, and things break, and we all die. But life goes on. This is the energy of life. Many cultures, though, do celebrate the beauty of imperfection, such as the carpets in the Islamic tradition that are deliberately, there's a fault in each one, for nothing can be woven perfectly, or Japan, a culture that in its contemporary, at least on the surface, contemporarily speaking, seems obsessed with detail and perfection. But they have the wonderful example of wabi-sabi, which creates something beautiful out of the cracks of poetry. Leonard Cohen in action. When I think of myself and the most beautiful people I know, it's the cracks in their pots that make me rejoice about them. It's their pottiness. It's their cracked pottedness that I rejoice in. My Tuesday morning friends, we're all crackpots, but we're beautiful. We saw that at the beginning before our group started, how we were trying to make, in our own little crackpottedness, trying to make things perfect when they can't be made perfectly. But it was beautiful. It was done from love. You may know about the Japanese robes, kimonos. Well, did you know that some of them are deliberately, the most plain ones on the outside, are deliberately designed imperfectly? They are playing with the odd imperfections sewn into them, on the outside at least. And yet on the inside, they are intricately beautiful and meticulously crafted. The purpose is, I believe, to remind the weaver that the beauty lies within. Too easily we are distracted in life by attempts to appear, at least on the outside, as perfect, so that we can't be criticised. Whilst on the inside, when we try to appear perfect on the outside, we're hiding something that we perceive to be imperfect on the inside. That there's something that we believe somehow that there's something wrong with us, and we must hide this. I don't believe by our very core, by our nature, that there's something wrong with us. I don't accept that. I don't. We are perfectly imperfect, but beautiful. We are cracked pots, but beautiful. We're worn a bit. We're crooked up, broken a little bit by life. But that doesn't mean there's something wrong with us at our core. And our task, I believe, is to bring that beauty within us to life. We have to believe it's there, though. The cracks, you see, don't just let the light into us. They let the light out from us. We have a purpose here, as people. So let's crack on. Let's crack on before we crack up, as I like to say to my friends. Life is not a competition where we have to be number one. Life is really about falling down many, many times, making many, many mistakes, and helping one another become the best that we can be. But not for ourselves alone, for us to share in. And I reckon, if we actually were perfect, or if we appeared to be perfect, we wouldn't be much use to anybody else. Why? Because we'd be unrelatable. Who can relate to perfection, really? Who can connect to that ideal? You wouldn't feel like you could talk to someone who appeared that way. No, it's the cracks that let the light in and the light out. It's the cracks in which we connect, really. Perfectly imperfect. It's maybe something to think about. Consider the mistakes that we've made in our lives. Mistakes that have led to wonderful things, just like Jeanette's grandparents who became Unitarians by mistake and found something more than they were looking for. Perhaps think of the gifts that have grown in our lives from our brokenness, from our woundedness, from our scars as they've healed, as we limped along as wounded healers. Where have we been led by our beauty? Where have our beautiful mistakes led us? What blessings have been unearthed later in life due to these beautiful mistakes? What have they led to? Maybe places we've been to or things we've done that have come from the blessings of these beautiful mistakes. Maybe think about what brought you to listen to me. That might have been a mistake. I'm sure it was. What's that led to? I bet it was. I bet you didn't find me by searching for the perfect equation to life. Maybe it was a search for meaning, but one thing I've learned is that there is no answer. There is no perfect answer anyway. You won't find the perfect equation to life. The answer is not math, and it certainly isn't 42. The answer maybe to meaning is to simply ask the question. It's in seeking and it's in living with one another side by side, sharing our beautiful journeys together, sharing who we are with all the beautifully strange, the perfectly imperfect, the people just like you and me. So, what I say is let's continue being crooked men and crooked women, crooked people, however we identify. Let's keep walking the crooked mile. You never know. We might find a crooked sixpence upon the crooked stile, but let's keep climbing over that stile. Amen. So I'm going to end this imperfect adventure. It's stumbling along. I've stumbled in this video, haven't I? Hope you've enjoyed my stumbling, my mistakes, my errors, my whatever. Can't think of anything to say now. But let's end with a blessing, an imperfect blessing. But we need to bless more. And we bless by giving ourselves wholeheartedly to life. So let's go now in peace, filled with the love that we've known in this time together, overflowing with the spirit of that love. Love for ourselves, love for one another, love for life, love for God. Let's look at the world with loving eyes and let those loving eyes of life look back for us, even if our look is imperfect, with imperfect vision. Let's look at each other with a smile from our hearts stretching right across our eyes. Let's not look with tired eyes, with hard eyes. Let's look through compassionate, loving eyes. And let's be ready at any moment to disarm our own hearts. And let's begin as if that realm of love had already begun. Let's live that way. And may the blessings of God go with us all, and may it do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do. Let's go in love and in peace. Amen.